going on, dudes and dudettes? So a little bit of USC football news. So we got Brew McCoy and Chris Steele officially signing letters of intent and returning back to USC. I know in prior videos last week I was suggesting that they were picking that, but then I wasn't 100% sure with Brew McCoy. But now it's obvious that it's 100%, and I am ecstatic. And I guess we'll figure out if they have to sit out this year or if not. We'll just have to wait and see, but we'll see what the NCAA says about that. Then USC gets a wide receiver commitment out of Fresno for their 2021 team for that recruiting class in Beltre Jefferson. A couple of guys, ex-USC players, at least 3 came out of that school as well, and he's a 3-star guy. So maybe by then he could bump himself up to a 4-star, which would be pretty cool. And it's not like he has to worry about any of these guys being there for long, because I don't see a lot of these USC receivers staying for a very long time. Then an ex-defensive back and Isaiah Langley finally signed with the NFL team, and of course it's Oakland Raiders, so good luck to him. Hopefully he can at least make practice squad or at least get on one of these teams to keep stocking up our USC numbers in the NFL. Then they suggested that it's a good turnaround to bring back this old strength and conditioning coach for USC. A lot of the players are loving the program that they've been in since spring. They're seeing a lot of great changes and a lot less injuries as well, which is always great. So I'm just glad he's back and that these guys are actually buying in and doing the work, and they're seeing results, and hopefully they could show better results on the field as well. So according to some betting places or whatever, they say USC is tied for the 4th best team to win the Pac-12 championship. I think they're even behind a few teams on their Pac-12 South side, which is pretty crazy. And I don't know, I think they're going to do a lot better than most people are thinking, but they usually end up tripping themselves up during the Pac-12 schedule, and it just always ends up happening, but hopefully it doesn't this year, and we'll just see how that turns out later in the year. Then also we had that official football schedule come out for this fall. Hopefully the times later in the year will be shown and what channel they'll be playing on and stuff, so I could talk about that. But so far it looks pretty good. At least they're going to be on TV, main TV like ESPN or Fox, ABC as well, so good exposure for them. Then they're finally renaming the LA Coliseum a little bit. I guess they finally went officially with this deal with United Airlines, I believe. And I know I had reported, I think a few months ago, that the team or the airlines didn't want to have their name outside of there because they didn't want to face any backlash because of how much of a historic landmark the LA Coliseum is, and they didn't want their name over that and get all that bad publicity. But apparently it's going to be the inside of the stadium is going to be named United Airlines Stadium, and still on the outside it's going to be the Los Angeles Coliseum, which is pretty crazy and a way to get around it, I guess. But pretty sure when they come to a live shot at the LA Coliseum, they're gonna say the United Airlines first anyway, so it really doesn't matter. But at least somewhat of a deal's done. They have been taking out old seats and refurbishing and reconstructing a lot of that place inside. It is gonna seat like 20,000 less people, but it does look a lot more spacious and cleaner, and I'm just glad they kind of did that. Even though I've only been to one game, I plan on going to a lot more in the future. Forgive me if I keep looking down on my notes, but it's a lot of Chargers stuff to get through. So Melvin Ingram is declaring that the Chargers will win the Super Bowl this year. I pretty much don't like that just because it puts a big target on your back because you're talking a little bit too much when you obviously haven't even been there recently in quite a while, especially ever since I've been rooting for them. They've been to the AFC Western Conference Championship a few times since I've been watching them, but never made it to the Super Bowl while I've been a fan. So I don't think he really should be doing that. Kind of like the headline after that saying that they're more of a dark horse to make the Super Bowl. I'd rather be under that radar instead of, like I said, having a big old target on your back and people giving you 100% and somehow you lose to a crappy team with a rookie quarterback or rookie defensive player and he has his career game against you. So that's the way I see it, and hopefully it doesn't end up bad luck for the Chargers. But the Chargers did also sign their first 2-round picks in Jerry Tillery, who obviously still waiting on, and Nasir Adderley. So I'm glad they're able to sign both of them, but especially Adderley. Like I said, just gonna have to wait on Tillery to see what he can do. Then Trevion Thompson, I mentioned in the past few videos that he did sign on with the Chargers, a wide receiver from San Diego State, but he did have an injury settlement, so he was waived, and they pretty much have a roster spot open, but I'm assuming they haven't re-signed anybody just because you have to dwindle your roster down to 55, 56 players by the start of the season. So it pretty much solves one of your hard and tough decisions to do when cutting these players towards the end of preseason. Then also they declared that this should be a better defensive year for the Chargers. I'm hoping it is, just because everyone seems to be healthy right now and healthy going into the season. We obviously still have the rest of summer and training camp and preseason to get through in order to be healthy, which a lot of these guys who haven't been healthy in the past end up falling down, but I just hope it doesn't happen again to the Chargers. Then also they did a story about Keenan Allen, why he has this chip on his shoulder, even though he's definitely a top 10, maybe top 5 in some people's opinions, wide receiver in the NFL, even though he was a 3rd-round pick out of Cal. But I remember watching a video pretty recently why he was a 3rd-round pick. He should have been a 1st-rounder, obviously, but he did have an injury after a few games that year and didn't really run well and show off his speed and athleticism at combines and everything like that in his pro workout. But luckily he fell to the Chargers and did re-sign a few years ago, and hopefully they can keep him because he's obviously been a diamond in the rough that I like to mention for these Chargers guys. Then Lynn Swann is actually gonna go to Africa for about 7 or 8 days because he's opening up a new school out there in Tanzania, I believe, or I know it's not Tarzana because I think that's in the valley. But yes, he is going to Africa, doing some good humanitarian work, get up a new school out there, which is always great, especially in some countries like that. Africa, they always need a lot of help, even though I have a off and on thing that if the US should always have to go and help every single country that needs it. I think yes, but if it gets us in trouble with other bigger countries that want to do damage to us for no reason, then we kind of have to stake our ground and wait till the coast is clear. But I'm glad he's able to do some stuff like this to give back to a country that needs it. Then there's a pretty big guy, Trent Williams, left tackle that wants to be traded from Washington. He has 2 more years left on his deal, but they don't really want to trade him because he is still pretty good and can help their team, but he doesn't want to be there. So they said since the Chargers are having Russell Okung, their left tackle, he's still been out with an injury and they haven't really disclosed when he's going to be able to come back or not. So maybe a trade for him, giving up another one of your other players or 2, so then that takes down you another few roster spots. Well, you're really just going to probably be down 1 if you give up 2. Maybe, I think they're looking for a pick in day 3, so that could be anywhere from round 4 through 7. And if that's a couple picks, then you might as well do 1 pick and 1 player, just so you don't have to give up multiple picks, in my opinion. But we'll have to wait and see. He'll be a great addition if they do get him, but usually the Chargers don't try to go after guys with that type of money still left on his deal. I believe $14 million per year. But like I always say, just have to wait and see. USC's basketball schedule then for the non-conference came out. Nothing really too surprising. Also, pretty much the only big matchup they have is that LSU game I mentioned before at the Staples Center later in the year. So, I mean, it should help them out when it comes to getting into March Madness a little bit easier this year, because the past couple years they've been playing a bit more talented teams. So as long as your wins are a lot more, then you should be doing all right, especially if you make it farther in your tournament. Then power forward and Jerron Brooks, he was looking to transfer out of the USC basketball program. He did find his home at Washington though, so he'll be seeing USC at least 2 years officially whenever he plays. But I'm sorry, he'll see them twice a year, however long he's gonna play there. But I don't know if he has to sit out a year or two, or at least a year, because he was at USC for at least 2 years, and usually you can't graduate from a private school that quickly. But at least he found a home. Good luck to him, and hopefully he doesn't beat us up too much while at Washington. Then they're mentioning Mac McClung's athleticism. He's a point guard / shooting guard for Georgetown, who I wanted him to go to Duke, just because I thought him pairing up with Zion Williamson, who obviously they're comparing him to because of the athleticism, but just to have those two guys jumping all around and him being able to have more space and free moving with the ball, unlike how he has at Georgetown, where he had an okay freshman year, but probably could have been a lot more flashier to me if he would have went to Duke to have all those playmakers around him. But at least he's finally getting some recognition for that athleticism, and he always had it, but now he's at least showing it in the second level, and hopefully it can get him to the NBA at some point. But then the Ducks of Anaheim are looking to trade Corey Perry, or if a trade is not successful, then they want to kind of work out a buyout with him. He is aging and can't help a team if he isn't on their first or second line, I believe. But for the Ducks and the position he's in, he's a bit too much of a guy to pay to continue to have on your team if you need him to play a multiple amount of minutes. So hopefully they can get something out of it instead of just trying to save some money within the next couple of years. I hope it's at least another young player or so, and maybe some draft picks. That's what I would like to see, but we'll see what they do with him coming up in the future. Then they're mentioning that the Ducks are bound to have a breakout or rebound season next year coming up in the NHL, just because of how bad they were historically this year. And yeah, that usually happens with the Ducks. They'll have a bad year, get the one player they need in the draft, and then they'll be good for at least 2 to 3 years, and then they'll finally start slipping back because they just stick with the same old players. That's why I think they need to get rid of also like a guy like Ryan Getzlaf as well, who's aging but could help a team that's already in prime position to win the Stanley Cup. But that's just obviously the way I see things. And then also congrats to the St. Louis Blues finally winning their first NHL Stanley Cup. I'm just happy it wasn't Boston. Could have been anybody else but Boston. And of course all those fans there, while it was at Boston, they were just booing and being poor sports as usual. I'll get into some other poor sports and some other type of finals coming up and some other videos hopefully. But yeah, congrats to them. And a little bit of Duke basketball news real quick. The 3 main stars, RJ Barrett, Zion Williamson, and Cam Reddish, were all invited to the NBA draft because they're pretty much going to be top 10 picks no matter what. So they got a table. Obviously, congrats to them. Hopefully they don't get chosen too late and have to wait it out, but I'm pretty sure some team is still going to pick them within the top 10. So good luck to them, and that's probably next Thursday coming up in the following week, so it's pretty much around the corner. So the Lakers are finally in negotiations with the Pelicans, when all the while we thought back in February that they were. Turns out they really weren't at all. But now at least David Griffin is at the helm of New Orleans and is at least talking to the Lakers. And so far it's at least gone somewhat okay. The Lakers laid out their first type of deal where it would involve Lonzo Ball, Brandon Ingram, and their fourth overall pick this year of the draft. But the Pelicans want a little bit more for him because they kind of have their own idea. They don't mind taking the young talent and the top draft pick, but they also want a player that's kind of established already, who can either be an all-star, who already is an all-star, or a good enough veteran that still has, a good amount of years still left. So they are kind of being pretty picky with what they want, but it's obviously their prerogative because they don't have to give up Anthony Davis anyways up until the next All-Star, which is in next February. They could legally and basically keep him because of his contract up until then, and they would want to do a trade at least by then because they know they won't get anything returned because he's not going to come back. But it's probably better off just to get it done now. That way you know who you're going to be drafting that high in the draft, and say if they don't make a deal now, the Lakers draft somebody that they liked but the Pelicans don't like later in the future, then it could be bad for them and they just make a crappy trade later in the year. And they're asking, because right now it's pretty much the Lakers and the Celtics, and the Pelicans don't want to give Anthony Davis to the Lakers, pretty much because they're in the same conference. He would prefer to give him to the Celtics, but the Celtics are pretty stingy because the agent of Anthony Davis said no matter who he goes with, he's going to test free agency in the summer of 2020, and that's why they don't want to try to go but Jason Tatum or Jaylen Brown. And it's just funny how Tatum and Ingram, both ex-Duke players, top 3 overall picks, and they're being mentioned in trades already, which is pretty crazy. But even that thing when the agent came out saying no matter what team he gets traded to, they would go out into free agency that summer. It's kind of like backtracking on what he said before, because he keeps saying he wants to get Anthony Davis to the Lakers and this whole entire time. But is he saying that also even if he does go to the Lakers this year, he's not going to re-sign? Because I don't even think he can re-sign anyways, because you have to wait a certain amount of months, and then by that time you're not allowed to, once the season starts, you're not allowed to like get any extra years or sign an extension or do anything like that for a new contract for any player. But maybe that's why he's saying it. I just don't want the Lakers to do a trade for him and he somehow ends up not wanting to stay with the Lakers, just wasting all their time. But if it comes to the Lakers keeping the pick, they are really high on DeAndre Hunter, the small forward out of Virginia, Jarrett Culver, the shooting guard out of Texas Tech, and Darius Garland, the point guard out of Vanderbilt. Didn't get much playing time. I mentioned that other video that they were really high on, and he said it would be an honor to play for the Lakers because he was a Lakers fan growing up and a Kobe fan, but he is also a Clutch Sports client, so he's with LeBron's agency, and he's been working out with LeBron this past couple months. So it's kind of like I said before on that video, writing on the wall, why they're interested in him. And maybe he could be getting screwed too, because then they could just end up trading him as well. But I think we'll definitely find out next week to see who the Lakers pick. If they pick any of those guys, then that could be pretty much who they're going to stick with. But if they pick somebody else, then it definitely means it's a trade right now or even later for Anthony Davis sometime in the future. But that's just the crap the Lakers people are dealing with. I mean, they're still going to go full court press on guys like Kevin Durant and Kemba Walker, which I'm pretty happy about. But you just never know, especially with the Durant when he had that Achilles injury. It's just tough. And even I'll get to Klay Thompson and what happened to him, but just another guy who's a target on their stuff. But it's a lot of holes and stuff that we're gonna trust in a guy like Rob Pelinka, who's only done this job for about 3 years right now, and make him do the biggest trade. But the good thing is that he doesn't want to barge right now on giving up Kuzma, who is my favorite of the younger players, which I'm glad he hasn't. He better, if it ends up being just to give up another player, better give up his Michigan guy and Moritz Wagner, because if that's all you need to do, then do it instead of just trying to be loyal to your own alma mater. Please just do it, man. Get this shizzle over with. So yes, finally, congrats to the Toronto Raptors for winning the other day. Finally, the Golden State Warriors were taken down again over their 5-year run. And they're saying that this is like an asterisk win for the Toronto Raptors because Golden State was never healthy. Their best player only played for like 12 minutes the whole entire series. And then I'll get to another player who went down, but because of that, they're saying that it was too easy. But if you're going up against a team like the Golden State Warriors, I mean, in each game, it could have went either way, really. So it's still, no matter whether the Warriors had their team up to full strength, it was still difficult to beat them because they've been there before and know how to do it. And then I just hate hearing all this stuff the following day that even guys like DeMarcus Cousins, who's only been there for 1 year, and he's already saying it felt like I was in a horror movie with all the injuries and I just didn't know who was next. And then some other guy, Sean Livingston, who's been there for a while, said it was like we're just dying out there. And then Steph Curry was all frustrated. I heard he punched a wall and everything like that because of what happened with another injury. And even when I saw that thing live where they had the opportunity to go up to get that shot because they were down by 1 and they had the ball, and Curry, it was so obvious it was going to go to Curry, even though it didn't go to him right away. But they even put up a stat right there saying that he was like 0 for 7, or might have been more, but attempts, but 0 for 7 at least, shooting in the playoffs/finals for a game-winning shot. So he can will teams to a win at times because he is basically the best shooter in the world, maybe even the history of the NBA. But when it comes down to game-winning shots, people like LeBron, Kobe, Kawhi, Michael Jordan at times, no matter what, you kind of believe they were going to go in. But even when it comes to Curry at that moment, I just knew it wasn't going to go in, and luck went towards the Raptors' way and they got the W. Congrats to Kawhi. Obviously, he's from Riverside, California, which is close to me. So it's really cool that he's bringing it back here. And then it was the second time he's actually stopped a three-peat in progress, because he did stop the Heat's three-peat a few years back while he was with the San Antonio Spurs. And then he stopped this three-peat of the Warriors again, which is pretty cool to have on your mantle. But yes, Klay Thompson did go down with an ACL injury. They didn't think it was that serious at first, and he almost wanted to come back, but luckily they held him back out because it probably would have been an even worse injury if he would have went back in, even though he could still stand on it. But still, he could have majorly ruptured something else, maybe your PCL, MCL, your other tendons in that knee. But he is going to be out for another like 8 to 9 months, they said. so he probably won't even return until February or March. So that could hinder some teams, kind of like a Kevin Durant, who probably won't even play the entire season next year if you even want to sign him. And it kind of is up in the Warriors' thing because they think they could re-sign both of those guys at max deals, which I don't know if that's even possible because of how much money it is, and pretty much legally you're not really allowed to do that. But I guess if you're willing to pay, maybe you can. But I just think Durant wants to go somewhere else. Thompson is a 50-50 because there was a report saying that he might think about free agency again because of how he got injured and being overplayed and everything like that, kind of like how they all have been. But it's pretty tragic and stuff. But let's go into some a little bit better news. So Marc Gasol won yesterday for the Raptors. So it's the first time brothers have won championships. Pau Gasol did it with the Lakers. A couple of ex-Lakers on there too. The Toronto Raptors that won for the first time. Jody Meeks, ex-Laker, Jeremy Lin, ex-Laker, and even Marc Gasol was drafted by the Lakers and traded for his brother Pau and played the following year after that trade. So even he was an ex-Laker. So congrats to all them. And yes, surprisingly, the Lakers are favored by a sportsbook to win the championship next year. Vegas must know something. It's pretty crazy. You'd think the Raptors if Kawhi stays, but have to wait and see. Little bit of random news to end this video finally. So Cindy Marina, an ex-USC volleyball player, was named Miss Albania, I believe, in her, I guess, where her family's from, her country. So she's gonna be in the Miss Universe competition, which is pretty cool for an ex-USC student slash player. So good luck to her. Maybe she can go pretty far, and congrats. Then also Tom DeLonge news. He was being interviewed once again by another media outlet, NME, which I believe is bigger in the UK, but it's getting his news and spreading all his stuff out there just to prepare everybody for the tour and CD coming out later in a few months, hopefully. Then it was the 17th, I don't remember what that picture said, but it could be the 17th year of Newfound Glory Sticks and Stones record, which at that time I probably would have been 12, which is pretty crazy. I always thought it was funny when I bought that CD, like it shows two kids fighting, a guy and a girl fighting on the front or playing around, I guess, but then on the inside or on the back of the CD it shows them kissing or something like that. And even at the time, yeah, I guess I was 12 or 11, could have been at that time. Even my dad was like, oh, it's kind of strange that they're showing it. What I guess it was a little bit too much for a person my age to look at something like that, but it was just a kiss. I was just more into the music. I didn't really care about the picture, but yes, that CD has definitely stood the test of time, especially for any punk rock slash pop rock, alternative rock listeners. Especially My Friends Over You is a big time hit. The Story So Far is a great song. Sonny, about one of their friends' death, is a big song, especially in my family as well. They like that a lot. But yeah, definitely a lot of good bangers, as they say, on that record. Then what I also didn't get a picture of, but I found out too around that time during this week, that it's the 18th year anniversary of Blink-182's Take Off Your Pants and Jacket, which is pretty crazy. That's like their, at least to me, their second biggest record that came out, especially from when I was listening to them. So I was probably even younger, a year younger, so when I got that, compared to the Newfound Glory one. And that one obviously had a lot of great songs like First Date, Anthem, Please Take Me Home, Shut the F Up. A lot of crazy fun songs that definitely defined their rock band, but they only got better, in my opinion, after that with their other CDs. But yeah, pretty little cool random tidbits there from my life. So thanks for watching, people. Like and subscribe, comment down below, let me know what y'all think. Hopefully I could get this video up on Friday at some point. But yes, thanks for watching. A lot of somewhat positive news for some of my teams, but a lot of bad news for free agents. And the NBA, like I've said so many times before, is definitely going to change, and hopefully for the better, where these super teams are finally done and a lot of these guys try to go off and do their own thing or with other teams. Should be very fun. Hopefully they come to Lakers. If not, whatever, as long as you're not with Golden State. That's all I care about. And yes, before I forget, a early happy Father's Day to all the fathers that are in my life, everybody that I know, close and dearest to me. Happy early, I believe it's this Sunday, so happy early one for all y'all. And yes, even uncles count as well, Uncle Froy. So yes, happy early Father's Day to you. I don't want to get a dirty look when I see you next time. But yeah, like I always say, thanks for watching, people, and have a great rest of your day. I realized going and editing the video, I forgot to put this point when it comes to it being an asterisk if the Raptors, because the Raptors won this NBA Finals. But you could pretty much say every single time these 5 straight years that the Warriors have been into the finals and won or lost, it's been an asterisk anyways, because the first year LeBron was only himself. Both Kevin Love and Kyrie Irving were injured. Then the next year, they lost and they were up 3-1, and that was by their own doing. So even when they were playing against somebody full strength, they lost, kind of like how it was this time, a little bit different. But then the 2 years after that second trip, they had Kevin Durant, which is basically a cheat code because he's the best player in the game at that time and went to a team that had already beat the Bulls record of 72 wins in a season. And then so to me, that's 4 straight years of asterisk. And then this year, they had so many injuries as well because it finally caught up to them, and having to go to 5 straight finals and playing all those games, no matter if they swept people or just playing into June and July, is always going to take a toll. It took a toll on many recent teams, the Lakers, Celtics in the past, Chicago Bulls as well once Michael Jordan left. Even teams like the Detroit Pistons, even when they had their little run, the only team that it didn't really affect was the Spurs, but I think that's because of coaching, and they did a lot of load management correctly, and they rested those guys when they needed to, and that's the team I'm more worried about. I think the Spurs should get a lot more credit for going into next year because they have a lot of young talent that's going to come back and ready to go that were injured the past couple years, and they seem to be a lot more dangerous, in my opinion. But have a great rest of your day, and good luck to everybody.